All right, let's go through our lesson 3.3, Prove Lines Parallel. The last page of the notes, the last page of the practice problems. Reminder that our goal is to determine if the lines are parallel by looking at a diagram. So here we're going to have lots of different lines, lots of different angles, and we have to figure out how those lines are related. So again, I'm going to have you pause and we'll jump ahead to page 3. These are really good test questions. So pay attention to these. You should go back and review them. All right, for these questions, we have 4 different lines. We have line M, line N, line R, line S. I have all of the lines marked on both ends. So notice line R is marked up at the top and it's also marked at the bottom. Same with S on the bottom and on the top. M is marked on the right and on the left. N is also marked on the left and the right. And the reason that I have that is because we're going to be covering up part of the picture, so I want us to be able to see everything. Our goal is going to be to decide which, if any, lines are parallel, given the information that we have. So we are going to start out here with question A, and they want us to look at angles 1 and angle 11. So I'm going to highlight those up there. Angle 1 and angle 11 are those two angles right there. We think about what kind of angles those are, and if I trace those out, angle 1 and angle 11, they look like they're on the outside. Now the one thing that's a little confusing here is we have lots of picture here, and so my suggestion is to cover up part of the picture that doesn't have anything highlighted or colored, and that helps us show that line M is the transversal, and angles 1 and 11 then are alternate exterior angles. Notice that they are outside of these lines right here. One is above and one is below. And those two angles are supposed to be congruent. So we can say that R is parallel to S, and that is because of alternate exterior angles being equal. All right, so let's uncover, let's erase, and let's move on to question B. They say that angle 13 is equal to angle 15. So again, let's highlight angle 13 and let's highlight angle 15. We can even outline those two angles. And we notice that everything, all of the parts of the picture that don't have any coloring or anything on are just in that one intersection. So there are no lines parallel here because we only have 2 lines. It turns out that there are, we have vertical angles in this picture, and vertical angles are equal, but it does not make lines parallel. So there is no answer for that question. All right, let's move on to question C. Let me clear up our picture here, erase the markings that we have, and it talks about angles 13 and angle 6. Angle 13 is right there, and angle 6 is right there. If I outline those angles, I have only markings on the bottom of the picture, so I'm going to cover up the top of the picture. And then I notice that we have the interior right here. N is my transversal, and those two angles make a U. Those are consecutive interior angles, and they are supposed to be supplementary. So that means that my parallel lines are R and S. R is parallel to S. All right, let's clear off everything that we have there. All right, let's get that guy out of there. Let's go on to question D. It talks about angle 1 and angle 10. So I'm going to put a mark on angle 1 and I'm going to put a mark on angle 10. I'm going to highlight those two angles. I'm going to cover up the part of the picture that doesn't have any coloring on it at all. I notice that those two angles are both outside of the lines, and they have a transversal of M, and they're both above the transversal, so I notice that they are consecutive exterior angles, and those are supposed to be supplementary, so my parallel lines are R and S. All right, I've cleared up all my picture. Let's move on to E right here. Now they're talking about angle 4 and angle 6. So let's highlight 4, and then let's put that with 6, outlining our two angles that we have right there. Noticing that we don't have anything on the right-hand side of the picture. Those two angles right there make the Z, and those are alternate interior angles. And I do remember that those are supposed to be equal, so my parallel lines are M and N. All right, let me clean it up. Let's move on to question 12. Letter F talks about angle 12. Angle 12 up here is supposed to be congruent to angle 16 right there. So if I highlight those two angles and I cover up the part of the picture that doesn't have any markings, I can see that my transversal is S right here. That's the one line that cuts through the other two. My interior is right there between them. I notice that 12 and 16 are not both interior, and they're not both exterior, but they do make the F. And remember that the F is corresponding angles, and corresponding angles should be equal. That means that M is parallel to N. All right, let me clean it up. All right, let's jump ahead to G. And for angle G, they ask us to look at angle 10 and angle 11. And when I trace out angle 10 and angle 11, I notice that there is nothing at the bottom of the picture and there's nothing at the left of the picture. So again, those guys right there are linear pairs. There's no pair of lines in there. There's just line S and line M. Neither one of those could be parallel because they intersect. So we say that we have linear pair. And we remember that linear pairs do not make lines parallel. So from there, let me clean this guy up. And let's work on letter F right here, or excuse me, H. Letter H right there tells us that we are looking at angle 7 and angle 8. And angle 7 and angle 8 right there. I trace those guys out, and like the last problem, or the last question, again, notice there's nothing on the top and nothing on the right. Again, those are a linear pair. And linear pairs do not make lines parallel, so we don't have anything to worry about there. Let me clean it up. And the last question asks us to look at angle 8 and angle 10. And this is kind of an interesting question because you notice if I trace angle 8 and I trace angle 10, those two angles are not connected at all. I can't cover up the left side or the right side because I have something drawn on. I can't cover up the top or the bottom because, again, I have those angles that are there. So it turns out that those angles also have no special relationship, and they're not parallel because I have sorry about that. I have line S and line M that make angle 10, and I have line N and line R that make angle 8, and there is no common lines between those two. So I'm going to write here no common lines or transversals. So those lines are also not parallel to each other. These for sure are questions that you would want to make sure that you can do. You have to know this, study this for the test, and they are also on your worksheet. Good luck. We'll see you tomorrow.